I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. This time round we're talking about Mario Bava's 1965 film Planet of the Vampires, which gives me a wonderful opportunity to just spread my wings slightly outside the realms of the horror genre into 50s and 60s sci-fi, which, although I don't cover it on this channel, I'm a massive fan of. I mean, all the things from, of course, the Twilight Zone. I've got the Buster Crab Flash Gordon DVDs. I just adore them. Naturally, quite the Quatermass stuff from Nigel Neal. Things like The Bubble, of course, Forbidden Planet, and It Came From Outer Space. And what Mario Bava has gifted us with is a sort of gothic horror futurism with Planet of the Vampires. That means that I can just about get away with talking about a sci-fi film on a horror YouTube channel. The film follows a couple of spaceships. We join them in deep space as they're about to reach the orbit of a planet from which a mysterious signal is emanating. So these two ships have gone to the planet to investigate what that signal is. Once they get there, a strange force overtakes them. Many of the crew are sort of sent into a homicidal rage and try and smash up the equipment. Once they explore the surface of the planet, they find another alien derelict spacecraft, and inside that spacecraft, the giant skeletons of the crew of that alien ship. Is any of this sounding a little reminiscent of Ridley Scott's Alien? While Scott himself denied ever having seen Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires, Dan Bannon, the scriptwriter, I believe relatively recently did finally admit that yes, Planet of the Vampires was one of the inspirations for Alien. But whereas Alien tries to hide its B-movie heritage behind really high-end script, acting, special effects, sets, it's a prestige product, Bava's Planet of the Vampires leans into that B-movie-ness about monster movies and sci-fi alien planets, and it goes fully into all the campiness and the cheesiness, the fake settedness of it all of the things that you could level against it as to why it's not a good movie. Yeah, it's cheesy. Yeah, it's camp. Yes, it looks incredibly fake, and yet over time, this film will work its magic on you despite its numerous flaws. Cardboard acting, absolutely no characterization, a really uneven plot, lots of repetition in this plodding, meandering movie. Lots of sequences of groups of people trudging across the planet's surface from one ship to another, and then having a conversation, and then trudging back, and then trudging over to the derelict, and then something happens in the derelict alien craft, and then trudging back. But when you're spending so much time on such a beautiful looking planet surface, something that only Mario Bava can give you, and when you're spending your time in these enormous, cavernous ship interiors, lit as only Mario Bava can light them, you sort of strangely like the crew of this ship. You sort of get hypnotized and lulled yourself by this insistent force, and you start overlooking the flaws, and you start looking at the artistry and the beauty of it all. And I became quite overwhelmed with it, to the point where I was duly conscious of all the manifest flaws and everything that's wrong with this film, whilst at the same time going, but I am so enjoying watching it and having this strange, weird, flawed movie wash over me. The first thing you'll notice is the design element of the movie, starting as we do on a fairly sparse bridge of the spaceship. I'm a fan of the original Star Trek, so I love all the buttons and the flashing lights and things on consoles and little screens that you have to put your head into to read them and all that kind of nonsense. And you'll find that the costumes really stand out. These high collars, that the design of which looks absolutely crazy and completely impractical. You're just going to have to go with them. I found myself thinking, they look ridiculous, and then after a while I can't imagine them wearing anything else, especially after I'd seen them with their space helmets on, because then the collars really work in connection with the full design of the space helmet, and the collars really pop. And I started, after a while, as I say, the film works its spell on you, and I started to really dig the collars that at first I thought was ridiculous. And that in microcosm is Planet of the Vampires. You'll start off thinking this is all absolutely shonky and ridiculous, and then it weaves its magic on you, and you can't imagine it by the end of the film being any other way. So what you get is the kind of film that I have in the past described as a vibe movie. You don't necessarily watch it for the plot. Certainly you don't watch it for the acting. You don't watch it for its zippy pace. What you do is this is a world. The vibe of the movie takes you over, and you wallow in it for a while. And that vibe is a very strange, very Mario Bava fusion of a sort of 60s futurism with a fog-bound gothic horror. The planet's surface could quite easily be a futuristic Moor from the Sherlock Holmes Hound of the Baskervilles. Constantly fog-bound. Very little score going on in this film, so the winds on the planet's surface and all the noises around just make everything feel that much more desolate and empty. And then when you get inside the vast structures of the spaceships, and especially the derelict alien ship lit as only Mario Bava can light them, these are your futuristic versions of the old cobwebby, shadowy, vast castles that protagonists of traditional Gothic horror find themselves in. It's worth pointing out that there are no vampires in Planet of the Vampires. There is a threat, and there is returns from the grave. We're not talking necessarily zombies here. I don't want to give the game away, but if you haven't seen it and this video piques your interest, I don't want you to go in hoping for vampires. They're vampires maybe in the way that another Dan O'Bannon script, by the way, Life Force, deals with space vampires that aren't really vampires. They create sort of human revenants that are more zombie than vampire. Man, Dan O'Bannon loves this movie, doesn't he? But these vampires display red and raw wounds. So there's a weird sort of shift between a kind of naive and innocent 50s and 60s retrofuturism and a kind of more raw, bloody, woundy nod towards horror that we will start to get in the late 60s and early 70s and the more exploitation-y stuff. But none of these wounds and scars and anything would trouble any of the senses today. I imagine they were perhaps shocking at the time, but nowadays it's all sort of part of the fun. To me, the film feels a bit like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone. Too extended, if I'm being obvious. It's too slow, it's too ploddy. But the next time I put on Planet of the Vampires, it's not to watch a tight 90 minutes of excellence. It will be to luxuriate in this absolutely alien world that Mario Bava conjures for us. And if you're going to go to a place that looks like no other place you've ever seen before, you really want someone like Bava to design it, to light it, to shoot it for you. Because what better tour guide for the outer realms of the visual imagination than Mario Bava?